So I'm going to go over with you some advanced features of CMX2, and it mostly has to do with after you apply a palette and how you can customize it. But first and foremost, I want to remind you of the ease of use and exploring color, right? So I want to do that real quick. So I have 3 images here that I just found online. You don't have to pull down a high res or anything like that. You can take a screenshot. As long as you have the colors, you can extract with CMX2. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to choose like a 5 samples on this image here and hit analyze. Cool, I got that. And without doing anything else, I'm going to leave it on default and hit apply, which for the moment I have at opacity of 50% and a blending mode of soft light. So it's pretty good. I like how that looks. It definitely evokes that. But if I want to change something, I can come over here to this green one here and say analyze, come back to my image and hit apply, and it replaces it. And I can see what that green looks like. Come over here to this middle image that has a lot of different tones in it, browns and blues. Come back to our image and apply. You see how fast it is that we can explore, but we can take it another level. Let's say we like this image, the one over here with this beautiful water and mountains, but we only like the water. We like all this aquamarines. We take our marquee tool, any selection tool really, capture an area and analyze just that and apply gradient. And now we have the thing. So if we come up here and move the marquee tool up into the sky and hit analyze, now we have mostly blue, apply. You see how fast this is. And if I go over here to my green image, I can just be like, I like some of this, but I just want this green and dark greens inside the leaves there. Boom. And then we change that, we apply that. See how we're constantly exploring color and evoking the different ideas of the areas that we're selecting. And again, it can be with any tool. So for example, here's a freeform lasso tool, just that area, hit analyze, and we get a palette, and then we apply it. See, that's very, very simple. But one thing you have to consider is CMX2 is very smart. It'll know when something is not enough. For example, let's say I take a little selection of that blue sky, hit analyze. CMX2 says, please modify your selection. We couldn't find enough colors. Enough colors to make it worthwhile. There's absolutely no point in analyzing for a color palette if you're going to end up with one blue tone. So it lets you know that. It says, no, it's not really going to work. The real solution there is just to expand your selection. And don't forget, even Magic Wand tool, you can come up here and say, I want the sky area right here in this one, just sky. Hold down shift and select more sky. There we go. CMX, analyze, and we have the sky, right? Now, there's some bleed over, of course, from the Magic Wand tool into the tree, so it found some browns. This is just how its algorithm works. It's trying to make the best decision based on the instructions that you're giving it. Let's come back here and delete this because we're going to choose a color palette that actually works. We're going to try to blend it in to look nice, and then we're going to make some changes to it. So I'm going to go back to my watery mountain scene, one of them. And I've got this palette. I'm going to expand it to about 6. Let's see what happens when I really expand. There we go. We have some different colors in there we can play with. All right, let's go back to our image of Freya and apply. There we go. Now we have this image. What can we do with this image? Well, let's take a look, because we gone over in other videos that we have things like level. We can change the level. Double click the word level to reset it. We can change the opacity more or less intense, right? We'll leave it right around 50%. We talked about that. And then we talked about the smoothness slider, which helps take your palette and smooth it out so these gradient shifts aren't quite as rough, and make it a little bit smoother to kind of evoke the basic idea of your palette a lot better. But we also have something called Advanced Editor right here. Let's open that up. We open that up, we get a whole new window, a whole new UI. Let's take a look at that. So when we're in this window, we can do the same things that we can do on the original UI, but we can do so much more. So let's go over all of that. First of all, we have the samples right here. We can change that actively. See that? No problem. Smoothness also can change it. And we can see how these swatches are actively changing to smooth things out. See that? Very, very cool. Opacity, of course, we have as well. But the first thing I want to show you guys is down below. We have 4 different, sort of default, if you will, blend modes that we can play with. Okay, so if I chose like right now overlay, then I now go to overlay, which is a little more intense. So I can change the opacity. Like we talked about in other videos, we have these 5 buttons here for blend if. So we can choose blend if. Now only blending into the shadows and fading away into the highlights right here and now. I can try hue to see what that looks like. I can try color to see what that looks like. Change the opacity. Turn off that. Put it in the mids. Put it just to deep shadows, etc. And if I really want, okay, if I hold down Control or right click and double click, I can choose any blend mode that I want. So let's say I go to multiply for some reason, right? There we go, turn off in the shadows. Now we have multiply. Not the most common use, but if I put it on the shadows, it looks cool. If I put it on the highlights, it's very interesting. You never know what you can play with. So you always come in, right click or control click, I'm going to go back to my usual, which is the one I really love, which is soft light. Take it off, the opacity being too strong, and turn that off as well. You see, so we have the choices right here. Just in the advanced editor, we can do all kinds of things a little bit more, but let's take it to that next level. What's happening here in the middle? Well, first of all, the top bars, the top palette that you're seeing is the extracted palette as is. The one on the very bottom is the smooth out palette. So as we change smoothness, we can see how that palette changes. This is super smooth out. You can see by the nature of the visualization of the swatches is to show you that they're getting smoother, right? So you can leave it right around there. Now let's talk about what's right in between. These swatches underneath every single swatch that's been analyzed. A couple of things going on here. What we have underneath are potential alternates. Okay, I'm going to lower the opacity so we can see the original image a little bit more. Color Map X says, hey, I found this palette and I believe this to be the most representative palette of the image. However, we do have some alternates here of some other colors based on luminosity that could work, that you might want to consider trying. Okay, so right now, like for example, all this right here in this luminosity range, it has chosen, well, there might be some, a yellow, a sort of a yellow green that might work. You can click it and replace that color with yellow. You can see what happens is, I'm going to turn up the opacity so you can really see. Yellow, you see what it does there? And I can change the smoothness a little bit to help that out. Or blue, yellow or blue. It found one color that it felt in that luminosity range could be an alternate for you, right? The other ranges, it found multiple, found two on the low end. So we can make it green, or we can make it black, or we can go back to the original sort of olive that it found. Now on this one, on the next luminosity range, it found 4 alternates. Okay, you can try a very slightly different blue. You can try a green, minor change, a lighter green, another minor change. Okay, go back to the original blue that we found, and etc. We can constantly keep changing in its basic suggestions. It's not going to make an outrageous suggestion of something that's completely wrong luminosity wise. It's going to try to do the best thing possible, but give you choices. The algorithm finds it creates an analysis, and then it goes, okay, here's what I think is best, and here are some secondary options that I think is best too. Rather than us just letting you have one of the algorithm's results, we're giving you the choice to tweak and modify. Okay, so here again on the lighter ones, we have these pastels. These aren't going to make too much of a radical difference in soft light, but they still are making some changes, of course. All right, and while you're here, you have the add whites and add blacks button that we had on the main UI. Can add whites, and now we have white, and add black, and now we have black to have a full range of luminosity on our palette. Actively turn those on and off, right? Okay. But even more, by the way, when we're doing all of this, we can still move our samples around, okay, to anything we want. We can still change our smoothness and of course our opacity and our blend diff. All of it can be changed actively while you're playing around to really dial in what you want. In a minute, I'm going to try to, but let's continue. If we hold down Option or Alt, Mac or PC, all right, and we come to down here to opacity and we double click it, now we have fill, okay? Fill is not completely common, but if I were to right click soft light, and come down to my favorite fill function of hard mix. Now with hard mix, I can play around with fill and get a kind of cool look. Choose hard mix, excuse me. See that? Hard mix is usually pretty intense. So, 65% gets crazy. But in the 10 to 25%, it can make a really cool look. We have this palette being applied and having a ton of tonal contrast. So I can come back here and go to overlay and then hold down Option and double click fill and put it back to opacity. And I get that classic look that I was working on in overlay. Okay, so that's one thing we can do, which I think is super cool. All right. Now, if we hold down Alt or Option and click any color, we can solo it. That's an audio production term, but we can solo it to see what it's doing. For example, hold down Alt or Option and click this blue. Now we can see what that blue is doing and where it's doing it. You might think, okay, that's kind of cool, so I can see what it's affecting. But don't forget, you can actively change right now. If you change the smoothness, you see the differences. You see what that color is specifically doing. All right. Hold down Alt or Option, click it again. Hold down Alt or Option, we can do this one. Or we can do this one. And we can see what that color is specifically doing. I can click this color and flop it out. There you go, excuse me. Let me just click that again. There we go. Okay, we can see what these colors are doing when we hold down Alt or Option and click a certain color. Now, if we hold down Command or Control and click a color, we turn it off. That's the X button that we have on the original UI, okay? That we can turn off these colors just to kind of like, maybe I don't like the yellow. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't like this pastel blue. Maybe I do. Come back here, change it to blue, turn off the pastel. Actively change these things out. Wondering this yellow, and I'm not sure if I like the yellow or the blue. I'm not sure what's going on. This is making me mad. Hold down Alt or Option, click it, and I can see the range that it's in and what it may be doing to my image. So maybe if I blend it more, I get less of it. Yeah, okay, that kind of works. I sort of like that. It's giving me a vibe that I enjoy. See, things like that, right? Now, we have even further. If I click on this color right here, for example, doesn't matter which one, I have hue, sat, and lum, or hue, saturation, luminosity. So if I come to hue and I click the color that I want, I can scrub. What does that mean? You see the little arrows pointing left and right when I hover over it? If I click and hold and drag to the right, I can change to hue. Left or right, I can change to hue until something that maybe it's a little more purple, maybe a little more green. I'm going to manually make it more green so it blends better into the green that's next to it. Then I'm going to click on saturation, and I'm going to take the saturation down because I don't want it quite as colorful. See that? And if I really want the luminosity, I can also make it a little bit brighter. I can make it a little bit darker. Dial in exactly what I want. So if I came here to this yellow, go to hue, go to the yellow. Maybe I can make the yellow maybe a little greener if I really want to. And take the saturation and take the saturation down. Make it a little more neutral maybe. I'm not sure if I'm loving that, but I'm just playing around. Luminosity, I can come in here and make this one a little bit brighter, maybe. I can take my deepest one and make it a little bit brighter if I really want. So I think I like that, but I'm going to change the opacity down a little bit. I'm going to choose that yellow again. I really like that. But I'm going to take the saturation of that yellow down, and it's a little bit green. So I'm going to go to hue and try to make it a little more orange because I'm looking at her skin tone. Because if I were to alt or option click it, Alt or Option click it, you can see it's a lot on her skin. So I'm trying to figure that one out. I think I sort of like that. Change the opacity, etc. I feel I like this. Cool. I can hit close the window and I'm back to my CMX, as you can see. At any moment, I can open the advanced editor and keep working on everything that I was working on a second ago. So you see how these advanced options can really help you tweak a palette. So if we look at what we started with, which is this beautiful mountain scene, we evolved it eventually into this, which is not what CMX2 chose initially, but it lets me tweak and adjust. And I started in soft light. I ended up in overlay because I liked it better. Same functions here still work. I can still play with these, but if I go to the advanced editor, then I can play around some more there. Okay. That's super, super ultimate levels of control to make sure that when you get a palette, you still want to evoke the sense of the palette in question, but you want to have the control that you need to get it just right. So like, let's say I wanted this kind of mountain aqua blue green thing and I've gotten it. I think it looks okay, but I had to tweak it just right. Obviously I can continue with layers from here to change other things in my work. I can add more grading if I want, but this is how we evoke a certain palette. So let's go through another one again. I'm just going to start fresh. Let's go to our green palette and let's analyze that. Okay, we're going to make it a little smaller, like 5. And I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Okay, and we're going to go to advanced editor and we will see that I'm going to turn that up. I think I'm going to use overlay again, turn it up really high, smooth it out because of that back end there. But I'm going to go to the blacks on the left side here, the luminosity. I'm going to brighten this one a bit. I don't like how dark it is. That works pretty good. This blue is nice. I like that, but I think I'm going to change the hue of the one next to it to make it a little more teal and in the direction of that blue to blend a little bit better. And then I'm going to put it just on a sweep. So that by the time it gets to the blue, it's pretty much gone. I'm not worried about it. Brighten it up a bit, change the opacity a bit, and there we go. Now we have these greens, but in a way that I like. Do you see how fast I did that? So it's not necessarily a huge trouble. It's supposed to be quick and simple and easy. So we can modify our palettes that we apply in any way that we want. We can get really radical in the advanced editor, okay? And you can choose and change these, and the hue can be changed radically. You can make lots of changes and you can, shift it more green, more blue. You can keep playing around with it and of course get new palettes and keep playing. So that's what we really, really wanted on CMX2 above CMX1 was flexibility. CMX1 was great at extracting palette, applying said palette, then we could change the opacity. Now we can modify the palettes because often they're great, perfect as is. Other times they need a little tweaking to really evoke what we're trying to get from the palette, and that's why we have the advanced editor.